Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Leadership Matters, a weekly half-hour series aimed at supporting leaders. And I am Dr. Kenroy Burke, your host, and I'm so excited this evening to have with me Joan H. Underwood, Managing Director and Principal Consultant. I want to encourage you this evening to tell a friend that we're on. Go share the broadcast, start a watch party, do something. We are now on Facebook, but we are also on YouTube, Leadership Matters 246. We are on YouTube and we are proclaiming the good gospel of leadership and what leadership ought to look like. And it's so great every single Monday evening to have another leader out there come and join us to be able to share of their experience. As I said to you earlier, we have Joan H. Underwood with us. And this evening, it is a joy to be able to welcome you, Joan, to the broadcast. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Thank you so very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you as well.
Thank you, thank you. So tell us a little bit. Who is Joan? Who is Joan H. Underwood?
All right. So, first of all, I'm a proud Antiguan and Barbudan first generation, born to a Dominican mother, a Monstrasian father, and I further embrace my Caribbeanness by being married to a Bajan and living in Barbados now. So I see myself as a true Caribbean woman from very humble beginnings. Have had, the privilege of living and working in the region as well as internationally, and have been exposed to some fantastic opportunities in terms of the career choices that have been made and that I've made myself and the opportunities that have been available to me. So I've had a very eclectic past. Starting out with my first career was in laboratory medicine. So I was a cytotechnologist, and for many people, that may not be a familiar term, but for the ladies in the audience, what I used to do was read pap smears. That was the bread and butter of what I did. So I diagnosed malignant and pre-malignant lesions in a microscope. And technical position, I went on to become involved in management and policy within the healthcare sector, and then ultimately transitioned into general management and HR. And now I'm a professional coach as well as an author.
Fantastic. So Joan, you started to share a little bit about your leadership journey, and I kind of find it
Mhm.
interesting that you were able to transition from where you started.
Yes.
Is that necessarily the path that several persons take? As I have these conversations, I'm finding that it seems
Mhm.
to be that most persons start one place, but this journey takes them somewhere else. Is that the case? Is that the what you've been seeing out there as you do training, etc.?
Absolutely. And, I jokingly say that I was pivoting before pivot was a thing. But
Hmm.
so often we find, especially with the current generations within the workforce, it's not like my mother's generation and the generations before, where they essentially straight out of school would have made certain choices and then that was it for life. With me, I have pivoted on many occasions, sometimes intentionally and sometimes by circumstance. And I think that's part of what I refer to as the transferable skills, to realize that you don't have to be defined by the job role that you hold. Right. And I say to folks all the time, I will lead anything, give me the opportunity. And I will lead any type of initiative. Give me a team and I will lead that team. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to relationships and
Yeah,
understanding what the mission is and being able to conceptualize and execute on that mission.
yeah, those basic principles. I think sometimes we think that the person who runs the hospital has to be a doctor, not understanding that leadership comes with principles, and wherever you're able to put those principles in practice. Now, Joan, It's been a pretty difficult time, difficult period for some. I
Yeah.
don't I don't know if we want to say we just celebrated, because celebrate is not the word we would. But Barbados, we just passed a year, of our last shutdown and everything, and it's been tough for leaders. It's been tough for persons
Mhm.
out there who've been trying to navigate this space. How has it been for Joan? How has it been for Joan, and how is Joan managing this period?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking because, like so many other people, I was blindsided by this. And I remember the beginning of a year is always a time of great introspection for me in terms of giving thanks for what has gone before and just examining the possibilities associated with the new year. And 2020 started off, I mean, I could not have asked for more in terms of the professional opportunities that had just opened up at the beginning of 2020. And by February, I had left Barbados to go to Antigua on three separate occasions, all for work, for three different clients. And I remember in one instance, a client had asked me to facilitate a strategic planning retreat for the team. And this was a new client. And I said, I just don't have I can't fit it into my schedule right now. I was teaching a 2-week program at UE. And he says, well, what about if you come Saturday morning and then go back on Sunday evening? And I was like, seriously? He wasn't kidding. So I got off teaching at UE Friday evening, was on a plane to Antigua first thing Saturday morning, facilitated his retreat on Sunday, and flew back to Barbados and was back in the classroom with UE on Monday morning. So I mean, it just started out wonderfully, and it was interesting work. It was work that I was excited about because I could see it was work that made a difference, that was adding value. And then the pandemic hit. And of course, everything disappeared for consultants and the type of work that I did. And for some of my clients, even there was one particular client where I was doing a leadership development program with the entire management team, and it was online. And I said to myself, well, at least that one I'm going to be able to hold on to, because in consulting, it's feast today and famine tomorrow. If you're not working, you're not getting paid. Unfortunately, though, the company was in the hospitality sector. And so when the airports closed, their business disappeared. So that too had to be suspended. And so initially, it was very challenging. And I felt myself becoming depressed over it because, as leaders, what do? We are accustomed to being in charge of things and being in control. And here I had zero control over what was happening. But fortunately for me, I was self aware enough to realize what was happening. And so I decided, Joan, you coach other people, you need to coach yourself at this point in time because you cannot give in to what you're feeling here. You need to turn this around. And so I
So,
said to
John,
myself,
John,
what?
I'm going to
Mhm.
jump in. I'm going to jump in here right
Uh-huh.
now. I
Okay.
want you to keep that thought, but I'm going to jump in here and I want to ask you, what do you say to John when these things happen? Because there's somebody out there who's walked this journey with you, and they've probably experienced the same thing. What do you say to John? What does that self-talk sound like when you are walking
Okay.
through this period of uncertainty?
Well, first of all, I acknowledge what I'm feeling with no judgment.
Mhm.
So I acknowledge that I was feeling depressed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was curious about that. So, why are you feeling depressed? Because I am not in control. I feel powerless. I feel as if, things are just happening and I have no say in what is happening to me. And I then said to myself, okay, now that you understand what's going on with you, what's the next step? And continuing with the self talk, the next step is to find something over which I do have control and to
Right.
focus my time and energy there. And actually, that's when I decided to write my book because that was completely up to me. I didn't need
Right.
clients in order to be able to write the book. I didn't need to go anywhere in order to be able to write the book. So on lockdown, all I needed was the discipline. The mindset that says, yes, I'm going to do this, I can do this, I will do this. And so that writing my book was how I spent the lockdown.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm totally fascinated by this because out of what we would want to consider adversity,
Yep.
I guess you were throwing lines, sorry, and you made lemonade. And I think that that sometimes is one of the dispositions of leaders that we don't necessarily see. We don't talk a
Mhm.
lot about it, but the fact that even in adverse situations, you are able to turn things around in your favor and bring some sort of good out of that situation. And I think that that is laudable. Now, as I say to you, there's somebody who's watching, somebody who is
Mhm.
watching. Yes, you spoke about the fact that you felt depressed and you just got up and you just decided, okay, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to get every single thing in place. Was that an easy task to do?
Oh, absolutely not. Because writing this book is something that I had been thinking about for years. I actually started work on the book 3 years before I wrote the book. And of course, there was always something that came up. And so I said to myself, you've been putting this off, saying, I don't have the time to do it. I'm busy with clients. I said, that excuse is gone now. So what else are you going to say is a reason why you can't write this book? And so I had to form new habits. And it was interesting because a lot of what I write about in the book, I was able to live it out as I wrote the book. So, for example, the book is to help new managers and even experienced managers successfully transition to the new role. And one of the things that you need to do in order to transition from individual contributor or technical worker to a successful manager is to form new habits. Because you may have had some habits that served you very well when your primary responsibility was to just do the work on your desk. Now, your primary responsibility as a new manager or as an aspiring manager is to get things done with and through others. So it can't just be you and the task anymore. Relationship becomes very important. And so, in order for me to go from being a very busy consultant and coach to now being a diligent, dedicated author, someone who wrote every day, I needed some new habits. And so that transition, as I went through it and trying different things out to figure out what worked would work best for me, I was able to share those stories in the book and to help others as they transition and as they form new habits.
Okay, so Joe, here we're talking now about the whole concept of relationship. It's the second time you said it, and I think obviously you value it. What is the value of relationship to leadership?
There is no leadership without relationship because you don't lead money, you don't lead equipment, you don't lead things, you lead people. And in order to lead people, you have to form relationships with those people. Now, very early in my personal journey as a manager, I was extremely results oriented. You give me a task to get done. I was absolutely committed to getting it done on time, within budget, to the designated quality standards. Didn't focus as much back then on the relationship, but as I matured in the role, as I developed more emotional intelligence, I realized that it was so much easier to get things done. I used to think it was a polarity, a choice between the task and the relationship. And what I came to learn and to understand, it's not relationship or task, it's relationship and task. And when I started investing and notice what I say, investing in building and developing relationship, guess what? My people became so much more engaged. They delivered so much more for me. Because when you focus as a leader, when you focus on building relationship with your people, they will give you a beautiful gift in return, and that gift is discretionary effort. They will go above and beyond what they're required to do because of relationship, because you've invested the time in getting to know and understand them, because you pour into them to help them to develop, not just to get the task done, but because you believe it's the right thing to do. And then they show up in a way that the dividend that you reap from that, you know, you can't pay for that. You can't.
Understood. Understood. Fantastic. So Joe, let's talk a little bit about your book. You wrote
Mhm.
a book in less than a year. That is in itself phenomenal. You wrote a book. There's some people who still have loads of books lined up that they want to release, they want to get out there, and COVID pushed you to be able to produce an entire one. Great. Tell us a little bit about the book. What are some of the things that you've captured there? Some of the concepts you've captured in your book?
Okay, so as I mentioned, the book is focused around the transition from being an individual contributor, a knowledge worker, technical worker, line staff, whatever nomenclature you use, to becoming a manager, or even if you're already a manager, to succeeding in the role. And so this is the book. As you can see, the title is Manager's First Aid Kit. And the metaphor, I stay with it throughout the book. Because think about it, every household, it's advised that you have a first aid kit at hand.
Yes.
Why? So that small problems don't deteriorate into big problems that may require you going to the hospital. And so if you tackle the challenges before they become unwieldy, before they overwhelm you, then you're practicing first aid. And so this is a very practical resource. And it addresses the three, in my experience, both as someone who has come up through the ranks as a manager, as someone who's a consultant that goes into organizations and interacts with line staff and with managers, and as an executive coach. The three most common challenges that I hear about relate to managing self,
Hmm.
managing others, and managing systems and processes. And so the book outlined itself. The book is in three segments. The first one deals with managing self. We then move on to managing others. And then we talk about managing systems and processes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about one of them for sure.
Okay.
Managing self. Let's talk about managing self.
Okay.
Sometimes, as you said, a major issue for some people. We're ready, we're in to get our teams moving and get people going, but we are not dealing properly with ourselves. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about how important is that to the leader? How important is that to the entire journey of leadership?
Okay. Now, what I've found is that unfortunately, self awareness isn't as common as it needs to be. So we all have blind spots, but we have some people in leadership roles who are just oblivious to how they show up from others' perspective. And the thing with being in a leadership role, it's not that easy for people to give you feedback unless you make it very clear that's receptive getting that feedback. So people may be talking about you, but they're not talking to you. So it continues to be a blind spot for you. And so the very first chapter of the book, I speak about emotional intelligence, starting with self awareness and moving things from your blind spot to your known area. Having become aware of how you show up as a leader, making some decisions about self regulation or self management. If it's working for you, fine. But if it's not, how do you then begin to change so that you author your own story in a very mindful and deliberate way rather than being hijacked and having your hijacked emotions dictate how you show up?
Right. So we're talking now to some leaders out there. You said some things there. I mean, they're basically things that you would have to unravel to discuss even further this evening. But you spoke to the fact that every leader has blind sides. There are things that you will not necessarily see.
Yeah.
There are things that you may be operating and you don't see them. You're comfortable in your own space, but it's making other persons uncomfortable. What kind of systems does a leader need then to put in place in order to be able to manage something of that nature?
All right. So you need trusted peers, you need mentors, and you need to make it very clear that you are open to receiving feedback. And in the book, I talk about feedback, the right time, the right place, the right way, and the right person for feedback. And as a leader, as I mentioned before, it's not that easy for people to feel comfortable because of the distance. People may
Yeah,
not feel comfortable giving you that feedback. So it's important, even from your direct reports, for you to let them know that it is safe for them to give you feedback, as long as it's done in a respectful manner, of course.
yeah,
All right. And you really have to be authentic about it, because you can't just say that it's safe and then, you get all up in your feelings and you get hurt, and then you start treating people differently because they took you at your word and gave
right.
you that feedback. So you really have to genuinely be open and see feedback as a gift, even if you don't agree with it. I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but it is information that you did not have before the conversation. What you choose to do with that information is up to you.
Mhm.
Now, there's a saying that leadership is lonely, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. And it's really true. And to counteract that, because as human beings, we are social and we're not meant to be alone. So it's important for us to cultivate relationships that nurture us. And so having a trusted network of peers, having mentors or sponsors who will be there to give you unconditional support, but who will also be there to tell you the truth. So if you mess
Yeah,
up, they will tell you that you've messed up. But because of the basis of the relationship, you know that they're doing it in your best interest
exactly.
so that you can
Ex-
receive that feedback in the spirit in which it's intended. Even if
Exactly.
you have to get,
I always,
uh,
very sorry, I always say to people, uh, people are, leaders are more responsive to persons they know are supportive. And I think that that is something that we don't get. If you know someone is supportive, when
yes,
they share something, tell you about a blind side or whatever, you are going to respond to them because you know that they have your best interest at heart and they're there for you.
exactly.
So you're better able to respond to that. I think some people like to do it the other way around. They want to give you the advice, but not necessarily give you the support. And I think that they go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So John, and I'm always mindful of the time we are flying that direction. Le- Leadership, management, it's changing. This entire world is changing. I don't think that we can, yes, we be opening bit by bit here in Barbados, but I don't think that we could be so foolhardy as to want to walk back into the same situation, thinking that everything is going to be the same. What are some of those things that you think leaders and managers today need to embrace coming out of this COVID experience? What are some of those things that you would say, if as a leader you haven't learned this lesson, something is wrong?
Oh, there are a couple of them. So, first of all, let me start with work from home, because in our Caribbean context, it was not something that was very prevalent prior to the pandemic.
Yeah,
Yet, look how many businesses kept going through the pandemic using work from home arrangements. So, as a leader, you need to absolutely understand and appreciate that no one is going to flip a switch and we go back to the way things, it's just not going to happen. So, work from home is now a fixture in your future.
yeah,
You can get creative in terms of how you structure it, who is eligible for it, but don't think you can just ignore people who have been working from home for the past year and say, okay, you're no longer eligible. Really do have to come up with a new business model based on the true nature of the work and be creative about it, because you have to reimagine how you do work. So that's one of the very first things that needs to happen. The second thing that I would emphasize is the importance of acknowledging that leadership is situational.
Yeah.
There's some persons who think, well, this is how I lead. So once you're on my team, you need to get on board and, get with the program because this is how I lead. How's that working out for you? Because leadership is about getting things done with and through others.
Others.
And the way to do that is to meet people where they are and help them to get where you need them to be. And so the way that I may interface with you, Kenroy, is not necessarily the same way that I'm going to interface with the person who may have the same job title. And well, they used to sit next to you, but now they're sitting at home, because everyone is different. And everyone is different in relation to different tasks. So when I say leadership is situational, it means that for each task on which I interact with you in our relationship, I need to take into consideration where you are, your level of ability and your level of willingness to engage in the task. Because there's some times that you will show up as being completely able and completely willing. And as a leader, what I need to do in that circumstance is to get out of your way and let you shine because you're able and you're willing. So I can't say that my management style is to keep a tight rein on things and, overdoing. It won't work with you. You'll get frustrated. And because I'm not giving you the opportunity to live into your potential, you may start withholding, or you may get so frustrated that you may move on. But in another task, you may be unwilling but able. For some reason, you just don't like doing this particular thing. So, in the relationship and in my interaction with you in relation to that task, I'm going to have to lead you differently. But guess what? I'm not going to know this unless I spend the time to get to know and understand you.
Right.
So I would say those are two, really critical things that leaders must factor in as we move forward. Leadership is situational, and you can't go back to business as usual. The model, how you work, you have to reimagine it.
I am already seeing, John, that you're going to pose a lot of problems to people because there's some people who are stuck and they're not going to want to hear what you just said. But as we bring it in even closer to the end, John, you spoke about leadership reimagined, and I love the concept of it because I think that is the direction that we're going in. Leadership reimagined. Now, leadership versus management, two different things, even though one may lead and one may manage, and then there's a little overlap in some areas, two
Right.
different things. For the sake of those who are listening, what is the distinction between leadership and management?
Well, for me, you are conferred with the title of manager. Okay. So it's a role, it's a position. You can just all up and down your organization. Some of your managers will show up as leaders, but you have some leaders who will show up in the most junior position within your organization. And why? As I've said before, leadership is about the ability to get things done with and through others. It's about the ability to persuade and influence others. And you don't need a title to be able to do that. And having a title doesn't automatically confer on you the ability to do that. So if you want to be a leader, you have to work at your craft.
Fantastic. So there are a couple persons who are watching. There's some young people who are considering this leadership journey. They're
Mhm.
thinking this could be something that even as I hear this lady speak, she speaks with such clarity. I think this is something that I might be interested in. What would be your advice to the 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old who may be watching us right now? Probably someone in their 20s watching us right now. and they've started this journey at work, and they've seen certain things in the workplace, and today they're thinking, you know what, I would like to be able to make a difference. I would like to be
Mhm.
a leader. What do you say to them this evening?
Right? Leadership is about direction. So if you feel within your heart that you have the capacity to lead, figure out your purpose. Lead to what end, right? Ask yourself that. You need a compelling why. That why will not only motivate you, but in time you will use it to motivate others. So if you feel that you have the potential, you have the interest, spend some time, going inside yourself in introspection and asking, what is this greater purpose that I would like to contribute? What feeds my soul? What's my passion? Because if you don't have passion around it, when the going gets tough, you're going to throw the towel in. But it has to be something that motivates you to the point that when you stumble, you're going to get right back up and go again because you believe in
Yeah,
that purpose, in that why.
that's fantastic. Powerful, extremely powerful. Now, Joan, as we close off, I'm going to give you one more opportunity to wave your book and let others see this incredible book that you have put together. You just show them again. Tell us also where we can get a copy of the book.
All right, so Manager's First Aid Kit, and it's available in multiple formats. If you're in Barbados, you can get it at Days. You can also get it online on my website, and you have a number of ways you can get to me. If you're following me on Instagram, check the links in my profile, in my bio, and that will take you right to my website where you can purchase the book online there. And I'm really excited because just earlier this month we launched the audio version of the book. So it's now available on Audible. And if you act quickly, you can actually get a free download if you sign up to try Audible for the first time. So you can get a free copy and start listening as early as this evening. And now that you can go out and get your exercise, take your walks, you can listen to the book while you're walking. So please, I encourage you to, pick up your copy of the book. In addition to that, if you follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, every day I put out, useful tips and guidance and strategies to help you take your performance to the next level. That's part of my giving back. So you may say, well, with what's going on, I can't afford a coach right now. Well, here's a coach offering services free of charge every day. You will get helpful nuggets, tools from my kit. That is my giving back to help you to realize your full potential. So on Instagram, it's at joan.h.underwood. That's joan.h.underwood. On LinkedIn, Joan H. Underwood. Same on Facebook. So I look forward to catching up with you online.
Thank you so very much, John. When you started to speak about that, but if you saw the brightness in your face and everything just went off. So I know you're excited about it, and I'm hoping that those who are watching would take the opportunity to make a purchase because I believe that it has lots of valuable information for us to be able to glean from as we continue to sharpen and to develop our leadership. So thank you so very much. This has been Leadership Matters, a weekly half-hour series aimed at supporting leaders. And this evening we had a wonderful conversation with Joan H. Underwood, a managing director and principal consultant. And we are excited about what is happening over in Joan's side of the world. And she's been writing, she's been doing some fantastic things. I encourage you to support her. Go find her on social media and support her as she continues to lend this kind of support to leaders out there. I encourage you to join us again next week. Our series is actually coming to an end. Season is coming to an end so quickly. But we are encouraging you to join us next week as we have one more conversation with another fantastic leader. And I also want to encourage somebody who is watching. Listen out for our mentoring circle. Our Leadership Matters mentoring circle is about to be birthed and it's going to happen very shortly. Something we've been talking about from the inception of this program, and we are going to be launching that mentoring circle. And I tell somebody here we're going to have a special launch, and it's going to be free of cost. All the mentoring that you need within that circle, free of cost. So tell somebody about all that's happening with Leadership Matters. Thank you so very much again. I am Dr. Kenroy Burke signing off for another episode of Leadership Matters.